I think is currently 7th place in last call for APAC. So I believe among all the players, these points would possibly matter to him the most because the story for APAC, of course, is that Tom60229 is way ahead of everybody else in terms of points. But we know that he is heading to LA already for the Summer Championship. So if he qualifies, then suddenly last call is open to a bunch of other APAC players.
And that's a big deal. So definitely those 15 points for the first place here would help a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, we see the players with their classes. Interestingly enough, we have Hunter again, second time in a row on the broadcast, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan of the class, so I'm super happy to see it here. And what is very important, we see a very different band this time. What can you say about that?
Yeah, mutual druid bands, and it's interesting to look at the differences in their lineup. So Machbe actually has a taunt warrior, which I think might be the only one in the top 8 that I've seen so far, at least. Both of them are bringing some aggressive type rogues, and of course Highlander Priest, which is among the most popular decks of this tournament.
For a reason, of course, right?
Of course.
It's the most powerful deck, most versatile as well. So that's it's an interesting strategy to not ban it. We have seen it previously not really go that well for the players that didn't ban the Priest. It just won the first game it played. But at the same time, it has some weaknesses that can be abused. Right? As you said, this is the first time we see the Taunt Warrior in the tournament, but we have to say for the viewers that didn't hear it before, that in this tournament, players can change their lineups after each round, right? Correct?
Between each day, I think that is. So from yesterday when it was the round of 512, they had the same lineups. But after that, today they had different lineups, and then they can change it again given that they make it to tomorrow. So they're allowed to change cards within the classes, but they have to stay within the 4 classes that they submitted at the beginning.
Still allows them for a lot of wiggle room
Yes.
when it comes to this strategy.
Very interesting. I mean, given that it's a single elimination bracket, it might be a little straightforward, but I feel like this kind of mechanic makes for some very interesting thought processes behind it.
That is true, and I think one of the trademarks in Europe, an example, was a player called Stanisivka, who's a known player, but when we had a situation like that when we could have just changed the decks, he was one of the players that was abusing that to a very high extent, you know, and that he was getting, he was really known for that. But now we're jumping into the first game. Taunt Warrior, as you said, first time in the tournament, it's already here in the first round against a Hunter. So a matchup we don't see often.
No, not at all. And I'm inclined to say that the Taunt Warrior would probably have a hard time against a deck like Hunter that is capable of only building maybe 1 to 2 minions on board, and they're big enough threats. Like Taunt Warrior would most likely be more comfortable against decks that go wide on the board, like Shaman, because they have so many board clears that punishes wide boards, like Brawl and Whirlwind Sleep of the Fishes. But Hunter, on top of having 1 to 2 threats that can just get bigger and bigger and only die to execute, they also have Death Rattle minions.
Yeah, definitely a very good point. And also, we have seen a very impactful change in the warrior class, which is obviously the change of the Fear Warx. And in this case, Su could have just played his 2-drop on turn 1 because he knows there's no way it will just die to a Fear Warx on turn 2.
Yeah, and I think that the War Axe isn't even in the list. Of course, it's not even in the list, and of course Stu doesn't know that, but it just must feel so comfortable for the Hunter now to actually just stick 1 minion guaranteed. And as we know for Hunter, all they need is 1 or 2 beasts to stick, and then the buff effects just keep stacking up. So now we see like Bear Shark on Curve could be really strong here as well. So damaging 2 minions this way does make it a little bit weak to Whirlwind effect. Actually, Blood Razor will be a full clear.
Well, almost the Death Rattle effect from the Hyena will leave 2 plants behind. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm sure that Su was actually looking for a different adapt than the Death Rattle for the Hyena, since it's such a beautiful threat against this type of decks and more controllers, slower. So as I said before, one big threat is actually super impactful, but now we see that Su has to go wide, can be punished by cards like exactly Blood Razor or Sleep of the Fishes that can be played in the future. Another adapt, another living spores to choose from, and then he goes for it again.
Yeah, imagine if these living spores were actually beasts instead of plants, which is not a tag, but at least that's one thing Machbe could be a little bit more comfortable about, that Houndmaster couldn't be that punishing on that turn. So Su is actually choosing to just go in with the Hydra, no respect for Brawl, and I don't mind it that much because even if Brawl does come down, he has the high main to follow, and if it's not there, the payoff is insane. However, Machbe will be getting so much armor because Su actually has to run 4 attacks into this.
That is nuts. Like, the amount of attacks that went into that armor smith is just insane.
Yeah, I was almost thinking he wouldn't trade all the minions, but then again, because Machbe has the Blood Razor, it seems more practical, and it also plays around Brawl to just run all those minions in.
Especially when he had to commit to the Hydra, he had basically another option was to play Kill Command to avoid at least some generation of that armor, but it doesn't really win him the game straight away. The way he's gonna win here is by smashing his opponent's face few times with a big minion, and that means that Hydra or the Savannah Hyman needs to live as long as possible.
And I really like this play from Machbe. Su trading in his minions in the previous turn made it so that the second-rate bruiser was more expensive, but Machbe actually uses the death rattle to his advantage here.
Oh. Now it's a little bit awkward. We know that the Unleash the Hounds doesn't really have much value in this matchup.
Yeah, close to nothing.
So maybe using it this turn would have actually been okay, right? But at the same time, that is kinda bad against a potential brawl.
Yeah, I'm not sure the Unleash would have accomplished much because even trading in the 2 plants with it is still not enough to deal with the 5 health. So I didn't mind that.
He had mana for both, for Kill Command and...
Okay, so Unleash on the Acolyte, you mean, or?
No, just straight go to face.
Oh.
It has the same amount of damage as the willpower. The only downside is, of course, that your opponent can have a brawl, a follow-up, and that is potentially something that you don't want to see. But now Machbe is actually overextending so that Unleash the Hounds has more value, and with a potential Houndmaster would be actually quite good here.
Sure. I did see a play where you can Unleash plus Eagle Horn, but I guess it didn't leave enough threats on board because the Hydra would then die to everything left. So playing the high main would be more practical as well. And Machbe here, Lich King on curve seems not too great because it dies straight up to the Hydra. So he could go for, yeah, Acolyte and Ghoul to deal with the Hydra.
He wants to just punish that Hydra really bad because when you look at it, Su is already on 19 health. And that Hydra will deal additional damage right now, so he will be facing 13 HP in the process. So even a Ghoul right now on the board is actually a huge threat to just end the game by a few attacks.
Yeah, we were talking about how the Taunt Warrior might have a bit of struggle dealing with big minions from the Hunter, but I think that the early Blood Razor really made it line up so that Machbe had a lot of game towards the bigger threats later on.
There was a big difference because if Su would have been able to adapt the Hyena on turn 2 in a different way than just living spores, so an example, plus 3 HP or even +1/+1 on the stats, it would have been such a huge difference. And now, Dirty Rat, I would have not surprised if the Dirty Rat would have pulled a minion to play a brawl. First of all, because Machbe has 2 of them, but at the same time, an additional value of that Dirty Rat would have been played. But in this situation, it's just a good minion.
Yeah, absolutely. And Su is hoping and praying that the Deadly Shot will hit the Ali Armor Smith. Otherwise, Machbe just gets insane amounts of armor. But even if it doesn't, like, the Armor Smith is just generating so much that even though Su is able to push through, the Brawl will be the nail in the coffin.
It doesn't look great for Su. The Hunter should have been a good pick against this Warrior, but it doesn't look like it does its job. So after this brawl that will be played, Su needs to draw a big threat. Another Hydra.
Or another high main, that's
another
probably
high
it,
main.
yeah. He does not run Deathstalker Rexar, so that's it for the top end for him. So I'm thinking that Machbe is over 90% to win this.
Wow, no, exactly, doesn't Definite Rexar, interesting.
Yeah, I think this looks a bit like the list Pino was playing, a bit. It's a bit outdated though, like a couple weeks old, but that list did not run Deathstalker Rexar and instead relied on the double Hydras and Hymens to get the job done.
Well, the Hyena is not good enough, and Su just concedes on the spot. Not really surprised. 8 HP on his back is not good enough.
Yeah. So we see that the Bittertide Hydra has some downfalls against a deck like Warrior that has so many whirlwind effects that it could actually just, in some cases, deal the full 24 damage to face.
A lot of people actually did make a comparison to Fel Reaver in the past when it comes to the Hydra, but I actually think that Fel Reaver was way better than the Hydra, apart from the fact that it was a mech and not a beast, which makes more sense for the Hunter, of course. But the Fel Reaver's impact of the trigger is not game ending straight away, right? For the Hydra, you lose the potential HP at some point. Even a single minion from an opponent will just kill you, while you can still win the game without even a deck, right? So that's possible.
Yeah, for sure. The Hydra has a more threatening effect because most of the time the damage to your face is more pressure than the threat of fatigue, which doesn't matter to aggro decks at all. So that means that Machbe will be moving forward, and he's got the Taunt Warrior out of the way, and we were kind of questioning maybe, or just expressing surprise at this deck, but it's definitely been performing well for him to have made it to top 8, so good on him for making sort of an off-the-wall meta choice.
Yeah, definitely a good choice in this case, especially since when we did speak to a lot of people here in the Korean scene, and everyone favors aggro decks in general. I mean, not everyone, it's an exaggeration of course, but the general meta is that aggro decks are mostly picked by players. But at the same time, this top 16, because of the rules that allow to change like the decks and completely, are making a really huge mix of that, right? We see players that are playing a mix of both aggro and control decks. We have seen players in the past that are just targeting control and just ignoring the aggro matchups.
Right, and I think that a pretty popular lineup to make. By the way, this is the nuts for the priest. Like, you got the cleric and the spirit lash, all of the cheap cards in a deck of one-ofs. But yeah, a very common lineup to do these days is like Jade, Druid, plus priest, plus 2. Like the 2 are the kind of variable slots. And Taunt Warrior is weak to both Jade, Druid, and I guess it can perform okay against priest, but if they get like an early Anduin and just start gunning them down, it's not that favored for the Taunt Warrior either.
Yeah. I mean, in Conquest, basically, you have 2 ways of playing against your opponent's lineup. Either you do a lineup that is just really good all over the place, because you pick just the 4 most powerful decks, or you build a lineup that is punishing a specific archetype, either aggro or a specific control deck. And both can work, both cannot work. I mean, it's a card game. Everything can happen. Anything can happen. Although that's not in the metagame anymore.
Right, so Su here missing out on a good 4-drop is going to be really painful, and the Spirit Lash is looking pretty juicy for Machbe here.
4 damage, kill 3 minions, heal for 4 HP.
Yeah,
that's
and curve into
nuts.
Raza the turn after, or he could even coin it out now, but
Ooh, a horror.
Choosing to go for horror here.
That
so I
is
guess he wanted a
interesting.
full clear. Well, the thing about Spirit Lash is that it leaves a Firefly out, but if I were Machbe, I wouldn't be that worried about it because it's not a beast.
Yes, exactly. Like the beast is not impactful. I mean, sorry, the fact that it's not a beast is not impactful at all. It's just a single minion. While the Shadow Word Horror, in combination with the Pin Size Potion, is a fantastic clear on whatever, right? Even on a Bear Shark, it does work because it doesn't target the beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, because Su is able to stick this Bear Shark and get a clean kill on the Raza, he's finally able to wrest control of the board. But we see that Machbe picked up Kazakus, which is again one of the best cards for the priest to draw in the early game, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that coming down. Well, Holy Nova coin Spirit Lash is a full clear, so maybe he wanted to save the Holy Nova for that. I mean the Spirit Lash for that.
Could have been that as well. It's an interesting choice because when he knows that he has Raza the Chained already in hand, it changes the dynamic of the entire game. Because of the fact that you basically have like a starting health of 40, 45.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, 40 to 46, right? Because the game will still be dragged out for like 8 turns, which is 16 HP in the process, right? So it changes the entire matchup.
Right. So Machbe probably looking for polymorph an enemy minion there, but didn't quite get it. So he's not looking too great, but he's still in a great spot because Su is running out of gas after this, like silence plus death. It's a 2-card combo, but we see that Su's hand has just no threats left.
Yep, still 3 threats left in the deck. And we have 2 Hydras, and we have another Savannah Highmane. So that's pretty big. Another weapon in the hand from Su also generates tempo, which is very important in this case. But I very much like this decision to not play the second bow right now, because you need every single point of damage.
That top deck from Machbe, I was just saying he played the one of death in his deck, but he just drew the perfect answer for the Hydra as well. So I'm thinking Su has just no way out after this. Even a top deck second Hydra, it's just not enough damage quickly enough.
When you think about it, who's the hunter now? Oh my god,
and Su knows it
already from Su. I mean, when you think about it, we see the hand, right? There's an Acolyte of Pain, which is 2 damage. There's a Smite, which is 2 damage plus 2 damage. That's 6 damage already for 4 mana. And you have an option to just ping your Acolyte of Pain for more cards, right? Straight away. So you generate more damage in the process, and you suddenly become way more efficient than the hunter with his hero power.
Yeah, you're just hunter plus plus.
Well, you're a hunter of the hunter. So no surprise that he just conceded on this.
Yeah, and if you're in Su's spot, you also see, oh, there's even still a Kazakus potion. You don't even know what it was, but they're all bad for you. So Su, I guess he's just decided to not waste any more time. And sorry to see that your favorite deck is kind of not performing well.
Well, you know, Hunter was always in a place that if you snowball, right, you win. It's just so powerful. It's almost uncontested when you can just snowball out of control of cards like Huntmaster, with the Crackling Razomo, an example when you hit a really good adapt. But when you lose the board, Hunter has almost no way of refilling his hand, right? Because in the past you had Unleash the Hounds and the most hated beast of all time, right? Which just draws cards when you play beasts. And that was like an amazing combo, but nowadays it's just not possible anymore because it was nerfed to 5 mana. But now, okay, again, it's the 3rd time for the Hunter. Maybe it will win this time.
Yeah,
right?
and Su does have a very good opening hand, even with just 3 cards of the 4 seen. So, Machbe in the previous game drew just about every answer for the early game of the Hunter, exactly when he needed it. So, well, now he just has a 1-drop and backstab as well, so that's about the best game you can ask for. But drawing patches means that probably Su is in a better position now.
Well, it's funny because he mulliganed it away.
Yeah.
So that was 1 out of 26 actually to draw it.
Yeah.
27, sorry.
Yeah, 27. Well, very unlucky, and we see that the Golakka Crawler is even in hand for Machbe. And Su very smartly choosing to hold the Alley Cat there, because if he plays it, then it just gives the rogue a free dagger and like good targets. So I assume he'll be saving it for a turn that he can play the Razor Maw at the same time, so he can guaranteed get the adapt on that.
That is correct. Machbe, I was quite surprised that he mulliganed away the backstab.
Yeah,
especially
I was wondering about that too.
Especially since he saw the Scavenger Hyena already being played twice in both games. That means that most likely they were being played in 2. And Crackling Razomo is a thing, right? So backstab is actually amazing against both of those 2 cards. So I was really surprised that he mulliganed away. But after the mulligan, he actually got the 2nd copy, so it's still there.
Right, so Su now taking the Living Spores, which probably is a lot better in this matchup than it was against the Warrior a while ago. In this matchup where it's more aggressive and every micro decision on board matters, even just extra 2 1/1s can help you make crucial trades. Like getting rid of a 5/1 is just so difficult for Hunter. Dealing damage in increments smaller than 3 has always been a problem.
Yeah, that's a very good observation actually. The only way of dealing 1 damage was in metagame, of course, not in overall. But in the metagame, you were always using just Unleash the Hounds for that 1 point of damage. So in this case, the Living Spores are a huge factor. And also, what is important in the current metagame, after all the nerfs, the changes in the cards, and the way the decks are being built, Rogue doesn't run any more of any AoE effects, like Fan of Knives, an example, right? Which are the perfect answer to Unleash the Hounds and the Alley Cat, an example. or the living spore in the process.
For sure. So Su has a slightly awkward turn because even if he trades the alley cat into the 3-2, a hyena would die to very good trade with the Zyril, but kind of has no choice, and at least he can play 2, so that he's telling Machbe, hey, if you take this sweet trade on one, at least the other one grows big enough that it's scary and you have to deal with it on the same turn. And Machbe has no activator for this Vile Spine this turn. So the awkwardness is on both sides now.
Well, the deckhand is good enough to guarantee the trades, although you have to think about it because the hyena, the other hyena, will grow to 4 HP.
Yeah. So I assume he'll be using the patches to get rid of it. And Machbe, of course, smartly holding the patches for a turn that he can kill it off right away with a trade because Golak Crawlers are very common inclusions in Hunter decks these days.
Well, he had two options, right? He either keeps it for the Slayer, for the Valspin Slayer, as an early activation, right? But with the Zyril draw, actually made it way easier since he draws 2 potions for 1 mana. So it's an easy combo.
Right, so he actually got the Stealth Toxin and the... Is that the attack one? I'm so bad with these names, and they're not even in Korean, but...
Brythron, yes, Brythron is +3 attack.
So I really like this from Machbe. Going for the stealth and making sure that at least 1 minion sticks for Bone Marrow is a big deal. He's not getting the buff off of the Cobalt, but it's more important that something actually sticks because you see from Su, he has double kill command that it's the same with Rogue in a way, what you said about Hunter, right? That if they're able to stick minions, it just snowballs.
Yep. When you think about it, the kill command is just a Pyroblast to the face. Your opponent is effectively on 7 HP. I really like the decision from Machbe right now to just be as aggressive as possible, since he actually has 17 damage right now on board.
Yeah, Huffer here would make good trades with kill command, but this is still fine, I would say.
Leok and the kill command to finish off the entire board. It's fantastic. The Hunter has way more time than the Rogue, since the hero power is so much more powerful than the Rogue in this department.
Right, so Su, the Star Creeper might have to eat a kill command, but wow, he's just drawing all the best threats in his deck back to back. And I guess it's well deserved at this point, having to go through a 3rd game with Hunter.
Yeah, I would say so. The Hydra can be a double-edged sword right now. But at the same time, it's just how much damage does Machbe has?
Leroy Shadow Step, Leroy's 12, and then the Briarthorn's another 3. But I don't think he can. Can he play all of it right now?
Well, it's 8 mana to play the Leroy Jenkins, but he can do.
Oh yeah, he could have done all of it.
I was thinking. Well, he can't really attack it with the Hydra with the dagger because he doesn't would die in 2 attacks. I was just thinking, like, can you play the Spellbreaker because it doesn't really. It nullifies the additional damage, right?
Because Leroy Shadow Step, Leroy, plus the dagger, it's 16. So
wow.
Despite Su having all of these like massive threats, it just wasn't enough.
And the Cold Blood as well being drawn, that's incredible. And that's something that we have seen so many times in, like, you know, years back. Shadow Step Leroy was the best combo for Rogue, and now it has a comeback. And Machbe is advancing to the top 4 with that old style combo.
So an insanely quick series there, and we saw Machbe taking the sweep on Hunter. And do you think this kind of gives us more of an idea of how Hunter actually is in the state of the meta?
You can't really say that after 1 match. I still think it's a very decent choice in the metagame, but sometimes it can get punished, right? And I feel like a little bit of unluck was on Su's side, especially in the adapt side, right? When he played the Razormaws on the Hyenas. Imagine the game would have been completely different if we would have hit, an example, a Divine Shield on the Hyena, or just +1 HP, +3 HP, right? Then he wouldn't die to the blade from Warrior and probably snowball out of proportion at that time, right?
Yeah, I would say it's a bit unlucky against the Warrior, but in the Rogue game, we even saw the Rogue drop patches, and the Hunter had a really good start. Fair enough. I mean, he had to hold the alley cat, but he did get the adapt off later on. So,
an interesting match. Even though with a 3-0, which seems like you know, the game was just blown out of proportion for one player. I think maybe not the first game, but second and third were actually much closer than it just looks like when you to see the result, right? 3-0 wasn't that really much of a blowout. It was just a very close match for the second and the third game. So, yeah, but congrats. It's the top 4 right now for Machbe, and he will be facing the winner of the next match, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he'll be facing the winner of Maska and Ungo, actually. Because we did cast, well, not me, but you guys cast